Welcome to the Living to Thrive with Cancer podcast. I'm Katherine White, holistic cancer coach and author. This is the place where we trade fear for hope, confusion for clarity, and overwhelm for empowered action. Whether you're newly diagnosed, living with cancer, or navigating life beyond it, each episode I'll share tools, insights, and real-life inspiration to help you create a life that feels good to live right now in the middle of it all. Let's thrive together. Welcome to episode 5.8 of the Living to Thrive with Cancer podcast. Before we dive into this episode, if you are a new listener, I want to welcome you to the podcast. As a cancer thriver, I use my stories and experience with stage 4 colon cancer to guide you through your walk with cancer. As a cancer coach, I want to help support you through creating a health-building lifestyle, managing your stress, and helping you to navigate the day in and day out stuff that comes up when you have cancer. In today's episode, I am talking with Peter Laneas. Hello, Peter.
Hello.
Welcome. I'm super excited to have you here, and I want to tell everybody a little bit more about you, and then you and I are going to get into an amazing conversation.
Sounds awesome.
Awesome. So, Peter is a passionate advocate, public speaker, and media professional committed to amplifying the voices of those navigating life-altering health and social challenges. A two-time testicular cancer survivor and LGBTQ plus advocate, Peter has spent over 15 years using his lived experiences to drive meaningful conversations on patients' rights, men's mental health, and social equity. Peter's career in advocacy spans multiple leadership roles, including serving as the national spokesperson for the Canadian Testicular Cancer Association, steering committee member for Health E-Matters since inception, and represented Canada as vice president of EVE and Violence Everywhere. His work with EVE focused on supporting women in cases of intimate partner violence while also addressing the broader impact on families and communities. As a male advocate, Peter champions a balanced approach, calling for accountability while providing a compassionate space for men seeking support. Beyond his advocacy, Peter has an extensive background in media and communications, having worked as a television host, producer, and speaker at international conferences. His ability to connect with audiences through storytelling has led to numerous media features, including his widely recognized role as the first LGBTQ plus story highlighted by the Princess Margaret Home Lottery. He has been interviewed by major publications, radio, podcasts, and TV interviews sharing insights on survivorship, resilience, and the intersection of health and identity. At Cancer Fatigue Services, where Peter works, he leads advocacy and engagement, ensuring that those facing post-treatment fatigue have access to the support and resources they need. He is dedicated to breaking down barriers to care and reshaping the narrative around cancer recovery, emphasizing that fatigue should not be an accepted norm, but a challenge that can be overcome. Peter's mission is clear: to uplift, educate, and inspire using his voice and platform to create lasting impact. Peter, you're like a rock star.
I just like that you use the abbreviated version. That's so comforting. It means a lot. It means a lot.
I love your bio because it is so diverse. Like, you have done so many amazing things, and where you are currently working, we're going to talk about that. But just the different touch points throughout your life, your very young life, by the way, of being able to support other people. So I really feel like it's important, because this is a podcast for people who are living with cancer, for you, if you would, to share your story. And I know that you were a very young adult when you were diagnosed. If you could maybe talk to that as well, that would be great.
Absolutely. And again, sincerely and adamantly, thank you for having me for this. It's always a privilege to be able to share your story and understand that you never know when what you are sharing about yourself will be that roadmap for another person. It doesn't have to be exactly the same thing, but enough that there's some level of seeing yourself that it's a lot less intimidating. It doesn't feel like you're trying to pick up some random machete and go through the forest, not knowing which direction is north, and you can't even see the stars to get a sense of if it's day or night. And that's definitely a feeling that has been a long-standing theme for a long time before being able to find my way and understanding advocacy and really what survivorship means long term.
Mm.
As a caveat before we get going, I am also should add to my bio that I do stand-up comedy and I like to showcase that I'm a cancer comic. So, for those who might be listening to this podcast, if you get a funny haha, yay, that's the goal. And it's testicular cancer that I had. So really the jokes write themselves.
I have to share, Peter and I had a pre-podcast meeting just to meet each other, and it was supposed to be an hour. It ended up being 2 hours, and it was just like this rolling comedy show of feeding each other testicular cancer and colon cancer jokes back and forth. It was brilliant.
There's something so beautiful when you are with, as I like to say, you're with your tribe and you have that decompressed understanding of you get it.
Mhm.
And when you're with someone who gets it, the pretenses are gone. There's no performativeness. It's just, oh, I can talk about this and that's okay. And you understand. And suddenly we're in this connection exchange where you resonate. You found a mirror. And it feels so good to know that even in those moments, I'm not alone. And
Yes.
yeah, it feels really good. I've joked about it before about how in one of my previous roles with Young Adult Cancer Canada for the program Local Life, I always try when I described it to people, I said it's kind of like getting a whole bunch of war vets together in the same room where they're just pulling up a shirt and saying, "I got this scar here and I got this from here," and when you're with and anyone who doesn't get it, they're mortified.
Hmm.
But then when you're amongst your tribe, it's just it's icebreaker.
Yeah.
And it feels so good to just get that. Okay, we don't have to worry about that. And then we can just talk about how we feel today. And it's again, it's privilege. It's a privilege to be able to connect with people like that. So okay, so my story.
Yes,
Um
please.
in a little bit of a Golden Girls way. Like picture it, Toronto, December 2002. Terribly chilly outside. I was 26 years old and I was working in hospitality at the time. I was a bartender and living the young adult life. I mean, I was that guy who maybe got a cold twice a year. I didn't need to go see a family doctor. It just wasn't important to me. I thought, oh, I'll just flood my system with, Advil and Neocitrin and just sleep it off and I'll be fine by tomorrow. It's absolutely healthy for you. Great choices. And nothing like over medicating. And just it's like a 1-2 punch. Let's get rid of it. All the commercials can't be wrong. I'm just putting two commercials back to back. And I had this experience where my left testicle was getting more and more swollen and I didn't understand what was going on. And I went into this being a health conscious individual. My dad's side of the family was riddled with heart disease, and I learned at an early age the importance of doing your best to try to maintain a clean diet, having a degree of exercise and activity in your life, because you've only got one body and you need to do what you can in order to keep it running. I remember learning a long time ago about how the premise and the structure of an automobile is fashioned after the circulatory system in a body. And to think about how those things correlate, well, we're so quick to go to the mechanic, and then there's those other folks who try to fix the car themselves. And then the metaphor about how we deal with our health. Do we go to the doctor? Do we try to fix it ourselves? What's the right answer in between? We just kind of want to get there and don't want to hear that thud happening from underneath the hood anymore and feel okay. So I'm dealing with the thud under my hood, and I didn't mean to make it work out that way, but it
That
actually
was
sounds way,
that was really
it worked
good.
out really well. That
Yeah,
was my
well
first time
done.
saying it like that. And I went to Toronto Emergency after I was done work, and I thought, okay, you know what? I'm just gonna ask them because they know more than I do. So I got misdiagnosed, and I'm not saying it to the discredit of anyone, for 5 weeks straight. Every week, progressively, it was becoming more painful. My testicles swelling even more heavily, and I was getting different diagnoses because it all depended on the doctor that was in front of me. And different physicians are more general, some are more specialized, and what's in front of them, their training is going to dictate what they identify out of reflex, and that's totally cool. But when you're 26 years old and you're coming in and you're hearing things like, what's a testicular torsion? Well, I was terrified to find out actually what a torsion is when you're a risk of necrosis of the testicle because it twists and doesn't untwist, loses its blood supply and could die. That's completely out of my range. Couldn't even process that. Terms like mesenteric adenitis. It's a inflammation of the lymph nodes that can cause a radiating pain to the testicle. I learned something today. Great. And then being told that I probably have an STD, just sent me home with antibiotics and painkillers. And my first thought was, shouldn't I be having sex in order to get an STD? Because I haven't lately, so doesn't really quite add up. And that was its own, personalized shame and having to try to reconcile that I've got this ailment in my reproductive organ, and that's got its own separate conversation when it comes to masculinity, identity, personalized shame, all the jokes that I've ever heard in my life about, oh, just have the balls to do this. Well, one of them is the size of a kiwi, and I don't know what's going on. So week 5 rolls around, stroll in, and I completely lucked out that the physician on the floor was a urologist. He took one look and he just said, CT, ultrasound, let's go. And within about 2 hours, I was standing there in, the ever glamorous hospital gown. I was naked from the waist down, dripping ultrasound lube all over the floor. And my roommate at the time was there for support. And then the doctor came in and said, you've got testicular cancer. It's stage 3A, and we have to operate tomorrow morning. And I can only speak for myself, but I feel like when I speak with other folks who've been diagnosed with cancer, the second you hear that C word, it's like the room freezes. You remember every detail. Like I remember the chipping of the paint in the emergency room. I was in emergency room 9. I remember where the bed was, the layout, the things that were on the just everything stopped. And as much as I adore my roommate at the time, he just completely panic raged out and just went, "Oh my God, you've got testicular cancer." So I did the only thing I knew to do, which was to put my arms around him and say, "It's okay. You'll
Yeah.
be fine.
Oh,
Can I get that painkiller now?
yeah.
One for my ball and one for all this." And that's where it started. And
Wow.
it turned into a rush surgery, getting asked whether or not I wanted to get a prosthetic. I had to address fertility issues. They talked to me about treatment through chemotherapy afterwards because of my stage. And it was just this whirlwind. And it all happened so fast. The only thing I could do was fall back on what I understood as a Mediterranean raised North American male is all right, put your head down, barrel through, and think about feeling afterwards.
Mm,
And that is kind of what got me through. And leaning on comedy was definitely a part of it, trying to make light of the situation, unknowingly caretaking people within my immediate vicinity, because I was more worried about how they might treat me differently once I'm now using this word cancer that has never been a part of my vocabulary outside of maybe talking about a movie or a TV show that talked about cancer.
yeah.
It never impacted me directly. So it was that was one hell of a door getting kicked open.
No kidding. I'm just reflecting in my mind of where I was when I was 26 and I was already married and had my first child. So I can't imagine like being like I was in a totally different world than you were, but I'm just thinking about like the having to go to the hospital by yourself again and again and again, the misdiagnosis, the having to manage that, and then having your roommate with you when you actually find out the news. Like it's just like as a 26-year-old, I reflect and I think like I wasn't be prepared to be a mom, let alone to have like the whole C word dropped in your lap like that. That's
I think
profound.
I think it speaks a lot about the young adult demographic where we in our respective stages of life, we sort of have these assumed understandings of where we're supposed to be. And during that time of like your 20s into your early mid 30s, you should feel invincible.
Yes.
Like you're able to go through whatever, you can bounce back from any life circumstance, and we're led to believe not necessarily a fairy tale life, but things shouldn't be hanging over us. Like there shouldn't be a shadow in the periphery. And then there's that aspect of when you hear about a young adult, you immediately think compassion. Sometimes it almost feels like an overtone of pity of, oh,
Mhm.
that's so sad that happened to you at this age. But then when it's you, it's just everything shatters. And when it came back together, I like to use the expression that I started seeing the world through chemo colored glasses, and
Mm.
it wasn't on purpose, but now it was that life experience of being presented with a term that immediately challenged my mortality. And now I saw things different. And it wasn't about better, worse, lateral, just different.
Can you can you explain that? I know what you're saying. I know what you're saying. I mean, I was 43, I was not 26, but I understand what you mean by different, and I'm sure that many of the listeners understand what you mean, but can you just give it a little bit more context of different?
Sure. Um, I think the difference came to a lot of a lot of illusions got shattered. And I come back to that word shattered because there was this mask. And I can only say that for myself as a person where I worked as hard as I did to create this image and this persona that I wanted to present to the world. This was the identity that I understood who I was. I was 26 years old, and I'm an out gay man. I'm working, I'm independent, I've got my own space and building my life. And I believe that it's going on a particular trajectory where I felt actualized and aware. And then this sudden wrench came flying into the machine. And the difference was that it showed me how temporary things can be. And just there are no guarantees.
Mhm.
So the only thing that you have in front of you, it's actually reminiscing to this really lovely Instagram post I saw a while ago. It was actually a long while ago. It still left an impression. This woman, she got a tattoo on the inside of her wrist saying, and it just says 60 seconds. And her perspective is that the only thing you are guaranteed is the next 60 seconds. 61 isn't promised.
Wow.
And you decide what you want to do in the moment. And there was just such a depth and a richness and an empowerment so that that feeling of things that were different became a catalyst to understand that when you understand the only power that you have is your ability to react. That's it. And that's okay. I didn't have to stress myself out about the impressions and the perceptions of other people anymore because I had this thing in front of me that was more important, which was trying to save my life.
Mm.
And whatever's going to be happening in that time, other people's opinion don't matter. Now, did I have that fortitude in the moment? Absolutely not. I was a
Hindsight.
devastated, oh, right, devastated. Like I was down almost 40 pounds from the chemotherapy, lost all of my hair. I felt horrible about myself. The accidental trauma of I love karaoke nights, and that for me was a solace. My closer friends knew what was going on, but I was going out, wearing my bandana, and just it was what it was. And I ran into somebody that I hadn't seen in a while, and they were a little standoffish to talk to me. And when I saw them, I said, "Hey, how's it going?" This and this. I was like, and I explained, "Oh, well, I'm going through chemotherapy treatment." "Oh, I thought you had HIV."
Oh.
And I had to take a step back and just process what was happening in the moment, and just all these feelings just came flying out of nowhere inside from one comment. And the potency of something like a cancer diagnosis and what comes with it, you're at inadvertently at the mercy of the perceptions of other people around you.
Yes.
And that really showed me the importance of what it means to find your circle, find your tribe, what gives you that safe space before I even knew what a safe space was.
Yeah.
And in retrospect, I'm grateful because it equipped me with the skill set so that I knew how to not take things personally
Mm,
and realize that in that moment, that person was just working with their experience level. They didn't know.
right.
And I can't be mad. It's okay. You just didn't know.
But it is interesting about the external perceptions and those who lean in and those who lean back because they don't know what to say. They don't know how to manage it. And I think in my experience, it's different when you're young because you're supposed to be, like you said, vibrant and alive, and you're getting your job and you're finding your person and you're doing all the things, and then you're just like knocked on your ass, and everyone gets really uncomfortable.
I think that either from there's a dimension as a survivor where you're confronted with it, and then the supporter or the outsider, as it were, when you're confronted with helplessness. And in the cancer diagnosis, because it's this invisible thing, you know that the extent of what you can do is maybe some actions and maybe some talking, but you can't go in and fix the problem.
Hmm.
That's what the doctors are for. That's what the treatment is for. That's what's your prognosis and what they give you are hopeful outcomes. But it's that being confronted with helplessness that makes anyone feel uncomfortable
Yeah.
and having to try to find a way to come to terms with it and hopefully find some solace in yourself.
Mm, that's a whole other conversation. Like really that learning to go inside and see who you are and not ask like why did this happen to me, but what am I going to do with this? How am I going to navigate this? What are my next steps moving forward? And who's going to be with me and going to not be with me? And again, you were so young when you were originally diagnosed, then to like you said, there were all the kinds of other conversations just based on your age. And I don't know about you, but even as I said, being 43, walking through the clinic at the hospital was like, everybody here's like 80, and I'm like a middle-aged mom. So it must have been even more, I'm assuming, I shouldn't assume, but I'm assuming as a young 27-year-old male walking through the chemo unit is like, this doesn't seem right.
It was, I feel like challenging was an understatement, and I don't think I would have used that word. It probably would have been a lot more graphic verbiage. Uh, Walking in there, and I was getting my treatment during SARS, so that was its own
Oh my
fun
gosh, yeah.
thing to deal with on top of everything. If I was to call it President's Choice, it was memories of COVID before it even started. It's like,
Yeah.
oh, this is what it's like. Oh, look at this. Oh, sure. And then I'll step outside. Everything will be fine.
Yeah.
Um, I didn't, it never registered things like immunocompromised. It never registered I'm 27 years old and I have nurses that are younger than me. And I'm surrounded by folks that are 60 and over. And I got pity glances from patients where they're looking go. I remember one in particular. Um, she looked at me and I was trying to keep myself active, so I would just get up and do laps with my IV pole just to try and, not fall asleep or feel overly sedentary. It was just me trying to push through and, yeah, be a man.
Mm,
And I remember this one elderly lady, she looked at me and she goes, "It's so sad you're so young." And I
ouch.
looked at her and I said, "You've got blue chemo." Uh-huh. That means you have blue pea. I walked and I heard this cackling laughter behind me. And her nurse came up afterwards. She said, "That's the first time I've heard her laugh in weeks."
Oh, win.
So that turned a corner where I realized that I can lean in on things that I was just intuitively trained. I did improv through grade school, high school, and a bit into university. And that was something where here's something in my back pocket that I could kind of have fun with
Hmm.
and take the steam out of it, not just for
Yes.
myself, but for other people. And yeah, to say what to talk about what you were saying earlier, the having to wrap my head around the perspective of being a young adult and going through treatment and feeling the way that my body was changing through each cycle and each round of chemotherapy, it was really hard. And it was that internal, like trying to find the resilience to ask myself, okay, there's only this many more cycles, but how am I going to be by the end? Will my hair come back? How am I going to be different as a person? I've lost all this weight. Um, who am I?
Yeah.
And it just, everything felt like it exploded. And when the treatment was done, um, they did another CT scan and they found that there were all these dark spots in my abdomen. And I had I had a choice where they said, listen, these are either unaffected tumors or they're burned out lymph nodes from the chemotherapy. But right now, at that point, they didn't have the technology to differentiate. They said we can wait and see, or we can remove them. But because of the chemo treatment you had done, you've got pretty severe fibroid scarring in your lungs. If we operate and something goes wrong with your breathing, we can't give you 100% oxygen. So here's a waiver that we're not liable if you don't wake up. And I made that choice at 27, saying, sorry, I was still 26. It wasn't my birthday yet.
Wow.
And I said, get them out. Like I literally, my gut instinct was get them out. So I didn't really tell anyone in my family or my close circle of friends what my odds were. I
Mm.
didn't want to spook them. And I went into this caretaker mode. And by the end of it, I mentally rationalized it all, saying, well, I come from a kind of hysterical Greek stereotype of a family. And if I put my father and my mother and my aunts and my uncles and my cousins and my relatives all through this, and then I wake up, I did it for nothing. And
Mm.
then if the other thing happens, what's the last thing that I'm going to see? So how do I deal? And it wasn't until maybe about a week and a half prior, I told three people what my odds really were, one of which was my brother, who I swore to secrecy. And Au- August 1st, I walked in ready to die.
Wow.
And it was unbelievable of just all these moments were transpiring. I was very grateful. I was in psychosocial oncology over at Princess Margaret, and they got me to journal, not trying to sound theatrical, but I literally got to the last page of my journal that day.
Mm.
And I wrote in it saying, I don't know if this is the end or I'm just starting a new book. I don't know.
Oh, I've got
And
goosebumps.
it's it was it was surreal. And I did go through the day before thinking to myself, how do I want to spend my proverbial last day? It
Yeah.
could be my last day, maybe yes, maybe no. And I went through the thought of, well, I'll just rack up my credit card. Who cares? And yeah, sure, I could do that. And I'm a child who grew up in the 80s, and I knew that I loved my video games, and this was a time when arcades still existed. So I walked to Young Street, grew up on fighting games, started playing X-Men versus Street Fighter, was having a blast. And this kid came up with his mom and said, "Hey, can I challenge you?" And said, "If you want to, sure. I'm just telling you, I'm good. I'm not going to hold back." And it was win, 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 win. I just schooled him. He went through so many quarters. I said, "I'm not going to hold back." And by about the sixth time, he turned, looked to me, said, "I hate you. I hope that you die."
Oh no.
So I turned to his mom and I said, "Funny story." And let's just say that the exit was not the most graceful, or it was definitely forceful on the way out, and that kid got scolded hard.
Oh
And
my gosh.
I couldn't stop laughing because I thought that was not my intention, but universe, this gave me a great story. And
Mm.
okay, if this is it, this is cool, and I'm okay with that. And I went in, and the reality of it hit as soon as they brought me in to shave me down and get me ready for the surgery. And the operation is called a retroperianal lymph node dissection, or otherwise known as a RPLND. And it's the third most invasive surgery you can do on a person. And because the lymph nodes are by the spine, they have to go in through the front because they can't go through the back because of all the nerves. And when they started prepping me, it started to hit and I could feel my anxiety go up. And then they brought me into anesthesia. And I ended up being one of those stories where it didn't work.
Oh, no way.
I was too hyped, just because I knew what I was so revved up about what this could be, and my thoughts were racing. And they asked me to count back from 10. I got to -2, and they're going, "Okay, just hit him again."
Oh,
So
no.
I remember they said count back from 10, and I remember feeling 10. No, like I remember it was like a turnkey doll losing power.
Yeah.
I just error, and I just didn't have. I had the moments to process what was happening, but I can remember when it happened. I wasn't worried about lights out being the last time. I was just more caught up in um I was I was fighting to stay awake
Mm,
because I didn't know what was next.
mm,
And when I woke up, which I was alarmed that I woke up,
mm,
um, the anesthesiologist came and she knew my story and understood what was going on and just took the time to say to me, she said, when you went under, you had the sweetest smile. I was okay.
mm.
If I didn't wake up, I was okay. I felt like I was true to the people I cared about. I used the word love and I was okay. Everything changed. I, it took me months to be able to fall asleep and be okay that I was going to wake up the next day.
Mm.
And all these moments, and I was cleared, which was great. They said the lymph nodes came back, they were just burned out, you were perfectly okay. And there was all these recovery things where it was recovering from surgery. I'm like, okay, I've been operated before, I got this, no problem. But the mental and the emotional impact and having to try to process all of that mortality confrontation, and I'm not even 30,
Yeah.
and I didn't have anybody to talk to. I
Mm.
didn't know anybody who had been through it. I still don't know many people who've been through it. And
Yeah.
it's not exactly a club I want to be a part of or I want to invite anyone. But if you get through it, amazing. I'm glad you did. And I'd
Yeah.
love to hear your map and see how you got through it because maybe I could help you or you could help me.
Mm. I will put your information in the show notes if there are people that want to reach out to you. Um, I feel like this is only half of your story. There's just so much that you experienced and you went through it again. You had a recurrence again, but just like pausing on that whole nobody to talk to and how do you navigate this and waking up every day. Like I know I was reading today, Young Adult Cancer Canada, that's right, did I get it right? YAC.
Yep.
Their report and what they're saying about young adults and these kinds of thoughts that young adults have, because who do you talk to when you're under 30? And your friends are all still going to the nightclubs or they're starting to get married and or they're traveling, and like who do you talk to when your whole world is literally just changed and you have a moment where you're like, I don't actually know if I'm going to wake up or not.
It I have no illusions and I have nothing but gratitude that I'm able to sit here now 20 years later and the fact that I'm still here 20 years later. Knowing that 3 years after my first diagnosis, I got a recurrence
Mm,
and it was in the other testicle, and that whole experience had this weird kind of silver lining moment, if it were. So, like, not everything was bad about the original kiwi-sized testicle. There was a silver lining. And I was getting ready for work one night and I just felt this familiar twinge while I was in the bathroom. And I thought, no, that's not possible. This is in the other, that, no way. But I didn't risk it, and I finished work, and I went back to Toronto General and be my gregarious self. I cracked terrible jokes saying, I thought I graduated. Maybe I have to do a summer school course. What are you talking about? Well, this is what I'm feeling. And even then, from triage to the physician on the floor, they said, do you know what? There's a 3% chance that you could
Really?
have testicular cancer in the other testicle with a time lapse in between. Like it's so minute that that could happen. And I had this charge of advocacy without even knowing what that word was.
Mm,
And I just refused to leave. I said, I'm not leaving till you tell me it's not cancer. Like,
mm.
run every test. And I stayed there for about 36 hours.
Oh,
And
wow.
oh, yeah, yeah. Like, I camped out. I got to know that food court way too well. And they just, I think I was annoying because I asked for too many mods, but I was just like, I might have cancer. Come on, be nice.
Please.
Oh, but the cancer card is real. It,
Yeah.
that
Yeah.
that is a fringe benefit. It's real. I want to collect points, but there should be a card. So like a physical card where there's something there's got to be a win. And when they came back and they said to me, "You've got testicular cancer stage 1A. How did you know?" And I said, "I know what it feels like."
Mm,
And that for me was just this fire of I had to figure this out on my own. I can't be the only one. And that just sparked into trying to find my tribe. And at first, I
mm.
was really zeroed in on testicular cancer, learning about it, how although it's considered a rare disease, it's the most common for young men between 16 and 29. So getting
Brackets,
diagnosed.
if you're a parent of a young man, please make sure that they are checking their parts.
And just to say about when it comes to men's bodies and stigma, every square inch is just as valid as another.
Yes.
So if you banged your knee, you go deal with it. If something feels wrong in your testicle, you go deal with it. And a huge component is self-awareness, examinations. There's great resources available through both Canadian as well as American testicular cancer resources. Canadian Cancer Society is great. Testes Canada is fantastic. The Testicular Cancer Canada is great. And just the importance of being comfortable and knowing your own body. And if something feels wrong, listen.
Yes.
It's one of the most treatable cancers that's got over 90% curability rate, but
Mm,
it's hanging on early detection. And that ends up being the thing that kills most young men from testicular cancer is they don't go.
right.
They don't go to the doctor. They don't tell their family. They just wait for it to go away.
Right.
And you, health doesn't work like that.
No. And well, so so many thoughts. Like education around self-advocacy, education around navigating the medical system, education around navigating your own body. Like there's just so many pieces to this conversation that I'm reflecting now as a mom of having a 25 and a 27-year-old. I have shared pieces of your story with them and advocated for them that they advocate for themselves because this is important stuff. And I was a teacher and taught health education in grade 8, and we didn't talk about this. Like there was no talking. We didn't talk about cancer. We started sort of talking about it when the HPV virus vaccine came out, but we didn't talk about checking your body, being in tune with your body, knowing what is normal versus not normal. And I mean, we could go totally sideways with all the conversations that guys can have in the locker room, kind of that masculinity sort of piece. But like actually, really, guys should have these conversations with each other about self advocacy and what can happen in your body.
Absolutely. I mean, one of the largest challenges even now, still in 2025, that isn't any different from when I was in high school in the 90s, is for a number of men, young men, the notion of vulnerability is equivocated to weakness.
Yeah.
And it leaves you as this open target where, I mean, I can't even imagine if I'd gone through this in high school and if I talk to somebody that I know in the locker room or another male friend, the risk of just being it's an opportunity for them to zero in on you and look like, oh, I'm the first one to start this funny joke about this guy who's got a kiwi the size of, a kiwi for a nut,
Yeah.
and not knowing the horrific damage that you're causing emotionally and mentally to the person, plus the just the swirling cauldron of trust issues that come out after the fact, where how do you open up to someone after someone's made fun of you where they think they're being funny but not even realizing the kind of damage, and there is a disparaging gap in trust culture, and
Mm,
that's something that we can really take time to advocate and create those safe spaces for men so they know that they can speak freely about something and not risk of being ridiculed or criticized or feeling less than.
yeah.
It's we are organisms. We all have an expiration date. And we're here, like somebody asked me, what's the meaning of life? Experience.
Mm,
Diversify your experience, whatever that looks like. And it can be from moving to a different part of the city, different part of the world, exploring, learning, keeping yourself open, just discovering who you are. There's so many options where when and if you are ever given a kind of a heads up that maybe this is near the end of the road, you can reflect with acceptance and not regret.
mm. I love that. I love that very, very much. With acceptance and not regret.
Thanks.
Acceptance for yourself.
Yeah.
Yeah. We really are just humans going through a very human experience. And like I often say, like, yes, okay, you have cancer. Cancer is the medical condition, but you are still the human going through the medical condition. And there's so many pieces of yourself that need to be nurtured. And I'm learning more and more as I'm diving into the younger and younger adults like yourself that have been diagnosed, the conversations that don't even happen around, you mentioned earlier, around fertility. Like women are having their eggs harvested, men are having their sperm harvested so that perhaps later on down the road they might be able to have a family. You're talking about a generation of people, like you said, you were just sort of, living your life and having a good time sort of thing. But no life savings, no RRSPs, house isn't even purchased, let alone halfway paid for. Like just the totally different world of cancer for a younger person is it's a conversation that is happening more, and that's part of why I wanted you to be here today. And I'm so grateful that you are, because you have a different age experience than many people. And you've had it twice as a young person.
It had a really prolific impact on perspective. And I find that on the one hand, I I romanticize at times the idea of ignorance is bliss. Like, what kind of a person would I be had I never been touched like by cancer? How would it have been for my family, for my relationship choices? Like, how would that have changed the way that my rudder would have been turned and how I sailed my ship? But I look back now and regrettably, like 10 years ago, I lost my dad to cancer.
Mm,
Uh, my relationship with him deepened and become that much stronger because when he was diagnosed, I was able to be there for him
mm,
and walk him through, this is what chemo felt like. This is what this felt like. Here's what's going on. And I deeply treasure the memory of my dad. And we did not have a good relationship leading up to that point. But when the real hit, and then we had this connection point of we now understand each other on this level, all the other BS just fell to the wayside and said, hey, Dad, I don't want you to feel scared. I
yeah.
know what that feels like, and I didn't know how to let you in. So I just want you to know that I'm here, and if that can help. And my dad was a very, very theatrical, emotionally expressive Greek. Um, unlike I have learned to quell because I'm grateful I'm half Greek, so I know how to channel it in ways that are funny and expressive and just as opposed to the, sudden Mount Vesuvius boom of emotion and then coming back like, what is just me? But it's just a difference in culture and finding
Yeah.
those ways. But there was such beauty in those moments too, because when the love happened, when the happiness happened, when the positive emotions were there, it was amazing. And then suddenly he found a way to tap into grace, and he found a way to
Mm.
tap into calm. And we were able to just have those moments of, I see you, you see me, we're both part of this club. We both know what's coming, and you're not going to be alone. And he
Oh,
wasn't.
oh my goodness. The child parenting the parent, or I don't know, is it even parenting or is it just being a friend? Just,
I think it's there was this book that I read, it's just hearing that reminds me of, it's called The Handbook of Transactional Analysis, and
mm,
it was paraphrased Underwood saying the games people play. But I remember this diagram where it showed three balls that were vertical, and the top was adult, adult, parent, parent, child, child. And how we interact with each other dictates the tone of the conversations. And a lot of the times when titles come into play, it's hard to break out of that.
mm,
And my relationship with my father for a long time was parent-child, but by the end it was adult-adult.
mm,
And it was harder for him to let go of the old dynamic and feel that sense of trust that he wasn't being less than as a man, he wasn't being less than as a father
mm.
by being open and vulnerable with his son, but he knew enough to know that I was cut from a bit of a different cloth. He used to joke about it in his way. He'd say, "You're like this ninja. You just get around a wall. Like, how do you do that?" And I go, "I don't know, but if I'm a ninja, you never saw me anyway, so it's
Yeah.
fine." Like, I was just fast. I don't know. It's if that is a that skill set, that gift, I have no business keeping that to myself.
Mm,
There's too much out there. And just to I am so inherently grateful for being able to be an advocate and having been a part of such great charities and doing organizational work, now working for Cancer Fatigue Services and helping co-run a peer support group with the social worker that we do on the regular. And it's just, there's a lot out there, but you just do what you can, one person at a time.
yes. Yes. I love that. Just one person at a time. And you really have built this, um, do you say post cancer? Do you like what do you call your life now, actually?
Well, I usually joke and say things like chemo cowboy, but
Oh, that's a good one.
like I
Chemo
mean,
cowboy.
that works. I guess I suppose in survivorship,
Yeah.
it's it's wild. I'm turning 50 next year,
Ooh,
and to
that's
think
exciting.
I know not
On a whole level. Like the people
whole
on this podcast will understand. I'm turning 50. This is so great.
I never imagined that I would make it to 50.
Yeah.
And that was like that, and like there's so different levels of celebration which feel wonderful. A lot are somber. Being an advocate and being so out in the cancer world, connecting and peer supporting, getting to know folks, everyone's stories ends differently,
Yes.
and sometimes it's a lot shorter than it should.
Yes.
And remembering and honoring them,
Mm.
living authentically, living completely, being in your moment. And it's not because you're trying to be performative for the sake of whatever media might be in front of you. It's you being in your space. And the thing is, you just know that
Yes.
there's this, I like to describe it as a hum. I just feel this little electric hum inside, and I know when I'm being me. And there's no apologizing for it. And I'm grateful that part of being me is funny. I
Yeah.
love being funny. And it's just to make other people laugh, especially when it provides a distraction, and maybe even if I'm lucky to say so bold, a bit of healing from something painful,
Mhm.
that's a gift. And I'm grateful that I can do that sort of thing. And I want to keep going until I'm not here. And that's
Yes.
okay.
It is a whole other world to have had your own cancer story. and then to hold that space for other people who have a cancer story. I mean, you know, the work that I do as a coach, working privately with people. Um, yeah, there are moments where it's very heavy. It's moments where it's difficult. There are moments of loss and grief, but there's also so much beauty and joy in being able to sit with someone and listen to them and help them shift the narrative or help them see it from a different perspective and help them to learn how to advocate for themselves and what they need, and just to make it a little less uncomfortable, but also a little less heavy, um, to make it a little lighter and sometimes a
And
little fun.
well, yeah, but advocacy, and just for transparency for anybody listening, advocacy is never black and white. Advocacy is not about you don't do it versus you do something super grand and the world knows and you're on a soapbox and you're doing XYZ. It is you being authentic about how you have embraced your story and your identity is authentically you and you're showing up for you. And that can look like anything because you know, like you just inherently know. One of the what I like to say is privilege. Definitely, it's a privilege, but it was a comedic moment that I didn't anticipate. Um, a dear friend had passed, and their partner had asked. They said, "Listen, you were really important to them, and I talked to the family. We would like you to do the eulogy." And I was like, whoa, this is like serious, massive like honor. I want to do right. So I did as much research as I could, just outside of the context of our friendship. And I was prepared. I was ready. I was there. Okay, great. And I went to the podium in order to deliver the eulogy. And this was in a church, and the casket was there, and everything was set up the way that you would expect in your mind how a eulogy would work. And as I went up the stairs, I tripped. And there was that silence. And I stood on the podium. I looked to my right at the casket and I said, "Thanks. Way to make it all about you." And the entire room burst out laughing. And it was a comedically oriented eulogy that was meant with a lot of sincerity and love. We both loved karaoke,
Mm.
and there were a lot of metaphors there. And I hadn't met this person's family yet. I only knew them and their partner from local life. And as soon as I came down, their mom just gave me this beautiful hug with tears in her eyes and said, "It's like you knew them their whole life."
Oh,
And I said, "Awesome, nailed it." That
yes.
I cared more about the sentiment than anything. And that to me is the most beautiful dimension of advocacy work, is where you get to connect and see that there are so many different colors and intensities of light,
Mm.
and it just makes this beautiful canon if you leave yourself open to it.
Yes. Mm. I'm just sitting with that because it just, there's just so many moments that you can just turn it around. You can change the narrative. You can make it, just make it different. Just make it different. And hopefully the people who are listening will take some of this away and maybe look at their themselves differently, look at where they are in their cancer story differently, look at their relationships with other people differently. Um, I'm going to look at that advocacy piece a little bit differently. I think I want to think about that, reflect on that a little bit more, because we often talk about advocacy as like you go into the doctor and you don't take no, and you just, and I want this and I want that, but I feel like you've woven a different dimension into that concept of advocacy.
And it's a growth. It's something that will start as one thing and it will evolve, where it can be you going in completely gangbusters, gun blazing right into the doctor's office because you feel like you need answers. And right now you're not in that space where, you know, collaboration is not right in front of you. It's in the periphery. Like you're too emotionally charged. And that's okay
Hmm.
because, that is part of the process. And I remember the first psychosocial oncologist that I got assigned. I didn't like him. But the one thing he did say to me was, he goes, you're just clinically pissed off. And I said, you know what? You're right. A little bit at you, but I'm probably projecting. And I realized that I was so angry about the diagnosis because I had nothing to blame.
Mm,
I couldn't pinpoint it. I couldn't look and say, I did this, therefore I now have cancer.
yeah.
And that was the I had to find a way to reconcile that both in myself and also to in its own way, I want to say to forgive the cancer.
Mm,
It's just it was there, it was doing its thing. I don't know why it showed up. If there was some celestial convergence, if there was a karma dimension, I don't know.
no.
All I know is that I was presented with something. I tried to deal with it. Finally, it got dealt with the right way. The journey continued. Second diagnosis, it is what it is. It was what it was. And I would not be the same person had that not happened.
Yeah.
And I get it. I get it. I mean, that's it. When I got to do that campaign with the Princess Margaret Home Lottery, during the interview, something came out of me that I had never said before. And I said about how uh, cancer cancer is a room in my house. It's not my house. I can remember it, I can maintain it, I can open the door, I can close the door, I can lock the door, but I don't have to live in that room.
Mm,
I've got a house, and that's how I see it. It's just a dimension of my identity. It's not the entirety. And it took a long time to stop leading in with people to introduce myself. One of the first things to say is, "Oh, I'm a cancer survivor." Like,
yeah.
wait, what a jarring thing to tell someone you meet for the
Way to
first
shut a
time.
room down.
But I'm in my head. And it's
Yes.
just a reflection of being wrapped in what's going on and still working out with support and on my own doing the work, reconciling this new dimension that I didn't ask for.
Mm,
And it takes time. I had to learn how to be graceful with myself, that it's not all going to happen in a minute. It's its own thing. Like, knowing the age that I'm turning, and I was first diagnosed at 26, that's when I hit 52, I will have lived with cancer for half my life. And that's the longest relationship I've ever had.
yeah.
Do I break up? No. I mean, we've already broken up twice, but now we sort of know each other. It's like, hey, how's it going? I'm okay. You're all right? I'm okay. Doing anything
Yes.
later? Well, I'm going to visit some people. I'm like, try to keep the list short.
Yeah.
It's,
Yeah. I write in my book about how cancer and I have this little dance that we do. Like sometimes we're staring each other in the eye and sometimes we're avoiding each other. But at the end of the day, and I appreciate everything that you just said. I love that room analogy, by the way. I might have to steal that. I always say to my clients, like, but would knowing why help you? And how is that going to heal what's happening inside of you physically and emotionally if you knew why? And I think for myself, if I actually knew the why, I might beat myself up even more. And you talk about giving yourself grace and like all of these things around moving into that next place in your life. And there's always going to be a dance. I'm stage 4, I'm metastatic cancer. There's always going to be a dance. I have a
yep,
CT scan coming up. I have a colonoscopy coming up next year. Like all of these things are still in place. I've learned to reframe them as this is the healthcare system confirming for me that I am healthy, not trying to find a way to tell me that I'm sick because I'm not.
yeah, that's I think the ideal evolution from scanxiety.
Yes.
And it's that is its own podcast episode of being able to find techniques where you can uh, get past it. But then again, like when you've gotten that first diagnosis and you know what it feels like, it's really hard even to, regardless of getting statistical confirmation in some way of comfort, it's that I've been through it once, and you have that tense, that flex,
Hmm.
you're on the roller coaster and it's just before the drop and you're not sure is it going to stay on the track or not.
Yeah,
And that's that's a metaphor I've never used before, but felt really right to say out loud. So I did. There you
that
go.
is a good one.
Thank you.
Yeah, it's true because yeah, there's so many. We could do a whole podcast episode just around scanxiety. You're right. Like, there's just so many things. There are so many things you and I could talk about, Peter. We could be
For
here for hours
days.
and days.
Yeah.
And I
I
know
got
we are going to talk again. So I want to, before I ask you my very last question, and I appreciate everything that you've shared, and I think the listeners are probably very much appreciating your perspective from your age and your being a man and you're being an advocate that we don't always hear because for all the reasons that we've already talked about. Um, but I know that your current work is going to be a future podcast episode, and that is with
It's with Cancer Fatigue Services. Very proud to be the outreach and advocacy lead for them. They've been around for just over a year's time. We are the first in Canada and second in North America as a specialty clinic that treats and diagnoses cancer-related fatigue.
very, very important topic. Like, long-term fatigue is a real thing. Short-term
It's
fatigue is a real thing.
it's
And who do you
it is
talk to?
the Oh, absolutely. It is by far the number one side effect, post-diagnosis and post-treatment and anywhere in the journey of the patient where it is so regularly just mislabeled as being normal as opposed to the fact that it is common. And in that it's common, it doesn't mean that it's not treatable. It is treatable. And there's so much to talk about in the next podcast about that.
Mm-hmm.
Having Dr. Scott Adams as well. He's obviously the more sciencey guy because he's got that fun little set of DR in front of his name, and I'm just me, where the patient lived experience person, but seeing the outcomes and how it's helped folks is really, really something. But even more so is the educational content and being able to learn and understand how it works, both from a physiologically and science-based level, but then the 10 treatable causes of cancer-related fatigue and how it's unique to each person. So there is no one size fits all reconciliation answer. And it's really something important to delve into. And we're happy to be able to share that with anybody.
Beautiful. I will link them, the Cancer Fatigue Services, in the podcast show notes. I think as a person 10 years out who still is tired, and people were like, well, it's because you're getting older, you're coming up on 50. Oh, you're in, perimenopause, you're in menopause. These things are real, but there's this like deep in the soul fatigue that and this didn't obviously exist 10 years ago. It didn't exist 2 years ago. So I'm so excited that this is available to people now and that you were able to just touch on it because we don't want to give it all away. We want people to come back and listen to the next episode when we talk again and with Dr. Adams.
Yep.
Um, I think it'll be brilliant to
I'll
to
tell you, I'll tell
share.
you, he will say that how he prefers to be called Scott. I just say Dr. Adams for the formality of some folks so that they know it's like, oh, okay, he is a doctor. Yes, he's a doctor.
Yeah. Well, and it's interesting because when I saw Cancer Fatigue Services come across my Instagram, I was like, who are these people thinking they know anything about people who have cancer and are tired? And then I started looking, and it was like, oh, there's like a lineup of doctors that are just like completely invested in the well-being of people who have cancer and are tired. And we're going to leave it there because I don't want to give it all away. I want them to come back.
Yeah,
Okay. Oh my gosh. Again, we could talk for days and days about all of this because it is beautiful to have these conversations and for people to be able to hear that some of the things that they're feeling or thinking are normal, that somebody else is also going, I don't understand what just happened. How do I figure this out?
it's true. It's absolutely true. I know if you haven't figured out, I joke about stuff. And I'm catching myself reflect to the original movie Beetlejuice, where we aren't as lucky as the people to get the handbook for the recently deceased, where it gives a roadmap of it should be the handbook for the recently diagnosed.
Yes.
Here's the step by step by step and the way that it's going to go. But even then, it would just be a general framework because
Yeah.
for each one of us, we all have such unique individual moving parts, and it's just trying to get through. So within that, don't be scared ever to reach out and find your tribe. Ask the questions. No one is going to advocate or take care of you better than you.
Mm,
And that comes from inside. It all starts here, it all finishes here.
yeah,
Trust it.
I love that. Thank you. Thank you for that. That's beautiful. I'm going to ask you the last question now. I ask this of everybody on the podcast. What does living to thrive mean to you?
Oh, what does living to thrive mean to me? Living to thrive to me means it means showing up every day. And I show up every day because I can.
Mm,
It's This is not permanent. It's going to change. It's going to go. So either I'm going to live to thrive or I'm not. And I'm not as worried about the performative aspect of it. It's respecting that I am capable of making that choice and then make it. Whatever it's going to look like today, it'll be different tomorrow. It'll be different than yesterday. But I made it. And I go back to what I believe is that the only thing I have is power to choose and react. So that's my choice.
mm, thank you. That is it's very deep, but also very, just so very simplified. Like you have the power to choose. And how do you want to live?
Yeah.
Yeah. Thank you. Thank you very much. Thank you very much for being here today, for sharing your story, for sharing your insights, for sharing your creativity in using humor to sort of create some levity. Cancer can be so heavy, but it's nice to have the perspective of humor in the whole thing also, to just because sometimes you just gotta laugh because it's just so surreal and absurd. You just gotta laugh.
Thank you. You're absolutely correct. I truly believe it comes down to choice. And we have that choice and how we can choose how we want to handle things. And remember that if you want to blow up, that's choice. If you want to be quiet about it, that's choice. And if you want to crack terrible dad jokes, that's choice. I'll choose the last one.
I look forward to hearing more terrible dad jokes from you in the future. Peter, thank you so much. Again, I will link yours and Cancer Fatigue Services information in the show notes. And if people want to find you on Instagram, they can reach out to
Yep.
you and just follow your amazing and incredible life. So thank you so much for being here.
Thank you. Thank you for having me and thank you for doing what you do, Catherine. This is a such a valuable platform and being able to give audience to our people the way that you are, it means the world. Like this is a place to find roadmaps. Thank you.
Mm, thank you very much. Thank you. So, for our other listeners, if you find what you've learned here today to be helpful, please share this. Please go find Peter, find Cancer Fatigue Services, come back to the podcast, share this podcast episode with someone that you think could benefit from it. When you share, it helps Peter and myself to support more people who are living with cancer and help them move from survivor to thriver. And if you have not already, please do subscribe to the podcast wherever you're listening. You can find it on Apple and Spotify, and also on YouTube in video format. And if you would like to become part of my Cancer Thriver community, I promise I won't spam you, but you can get your name on the email list just to learn about things like this, events that are coming up, podcast episodes, and just a little bit of information from a girl who's just trying to help other people to navigate this life with cancer. Thank you so much, everyone, for being here today. And again, thank you, Peter. It has been indeed a privilege.
Thank you, Catherine. Absolute honor.
Thank you so much for being here today. I hope you have a beautiful rest of your day. And may you live your life to your fullest, follow your heart, and thrive in all you do.